opening scene, we're introduced to Captain William Miller, giving a pep talk about how the military is not a joke and that it affects you both psychologically and physically. And then we see Santiago Garcia demonstrating this fact. Santiago, who's in South America, is trying to help their military find a man called Larrea. After a bit of a firefight, they raid this drug house and ask the people inside if they know where Larrea is. One of the men is pretty eager to talk, but the military shoots everybody else. And whoever else is left, they try to shove into a car and take back to the police station. And amongst some of the criminals that they were taking, a girl called Jovina makes an escape through the crowd. Santiago follows her and misdirects police who are following her on motorcycles, and he follows her on foot and reports back saying that he lost her. And we later learn that they're actually a team and that this girl Jovina is his informant. And she tells him that she got promoted recently and she's delivering huge bags of money in the jungle to her boss, Larrea. And she also tells him that most of the policemen down there are also getting paid off by Larrea. And hearing this, Santiago goes back to the US and tries to assemble a team. And the first man on his list is William Ironhead Miller. William agrees to go with him down south to do a quick mission, but first, Santiago has to convince Redfly, Tom Davis, who was their captain quite a while ago. So Santiago tracks down Tom, and Tom was trying to make a sale. He's now a real estate agent, and he doesn't seem to be doing well. Santiago offers Tom $17,000 just to do some reconnaissance, and he also tells him that he has some kind of deal with the agency down in South America, and that whatever it is that they seize, they get about 25% of it. And Santiago tells Tom that this guy, Larrea, has millions and millions in his house. Tom is interested, but he's very reluctant to do this job. He's old now, and he has a family to take care of. And knowing that Tom's not going to be able to help himself, Santiago leaves his file with him and just tells him to look it up. And later on, they all meet up at a boxing match to see Benny's fight. Benny, who's also a military man, agrees to go with Santiago. And so do Tom, William, and Fish. So now, Santiago finally has his team. They all go to South America, drive into the Brazilian jungle, and they do some reconnaissance into Larrea's house. They see that it's a big compound and it has a few weak spots, and after they finish their reconnaissance, as they were having some beer and having a conversation, Santiago tells them that maybe they should also be the ones to get in and raid the house. And the team is pretty surprised by this because they all got paid $17,000 to go down to South America to help the Narcos unit take this guy Larrea down. But they soon find out that it's not really the Narcos unit that paid them, it was Santiago. And he did that because he wants to run an illegal Black Ops mission on his own and raid Larrea's house and take all the money for themselves. And he needs the rest of the guys to do that. Finding this out, they all get very mad at him, but he tells them that they've accomplished nothing in 17 years of military service. Tom can't afford to send his kids to college, Fish can't even fly a plane because of drug charges, and William and Ben are also struggling as well. And because of the fact that they can all use the money, they all just agree to do it under a few terms. If Santiago's spy, Jovina, provides good intel, and they can rely on her and trust her, it seems like a pretty good plan. The idea is to pull off the mission on a Sunday, because on Sundays, this guy Larrea, who's a very big drunk kingpin and kills a lot of people, is apparently very devout, and he sends his family to church every Sunday with most of his guards. And in the house, it's just gonna be him and just a few guards that they have to take out in order to take the money. Tom's not really that convinced and trustful of Jovina because she's only helping out Santiago in order to get her brother out of jail. But Jovina does come through with great information, and now they finally have the last piece of the puzzle to pull off this mission. And so, our team here decides to go through with it. They wait till Sunday until Larrea's family leaves for church. They get inside, neutralize the guards, but when they get to the office, which was where the money was supposed to be, they find that there is no money, not even one single dollar. And just as they thought that Jovina gave them up and that's why there's no money, and everybody was so pissed off at Santiago, he starts to smell fresh paint in the house. And they all start tearing down the walls, and apparently the house is full of money. It's just in the walls. And I'm talking a lot of money. They fill up an entire van with it, and there's just still more money. But they only had about 8 minutes left to leave the compound before the family returns, but Tom gets a little greedy and decides to take even more money. Will and Santiago tell him that they have to go, but Santiago also tells them that he wants to do another sweep for Larrea, cause this mission was just not about getting money, it was also about taking out Larrea. and as they were doing another sweep and rinsing the house in gasoline, apparently Larea was in the house in some kind of safe room. He sneaks up behind them, starts shooting, but Santiago takes him out easily. And one of the bullets from Larea's gun actually manages to hit Will. The bullet went through, and Will is not really that injured, but their window has closed, and now the family has made it back to the house. And the first car to arrive at the compound is a group of guards, and they decide to just kill off the guards and take the van full of money and go through with their original plan instead. So after killing off all the guards and setting the house aflame, they finally make their escape with the money. And waiting for their escape chopper to get there, the team is met by Jovina and her brother. Santiago has promised to set her brother free and also $2 million and a ride to Peru. And when their chopper gets there, Fish weighs the money and he finds out that they stole $250 million. And the chopper may be big, but the money itself is about 6,000 pounds. And the mountains in the Andes are pretty high in altitude, and flying with a chopper with that much weight is not really an ideal thing, but they do it anyways. They drop off Jovina and her brother in Peru with about $3 million, and as they were flying across the Andes, they find that they still have too much weight attached to them. So you know what they do to solve that problem? They throw away $50 million. And when you think that $50 million is enough and they can make it across the Andes, you're wrong. Just as they were getting high enough to cross, one of the gearboxes on the chopper gets blown off, and they now have to make an emergency landing. They cut off the 6,000 pound bag full of cash on some farm, and they manage to land without exploding. And when they start to look around, the farmers, the people in this village, start to go through their bags, which is full of money. And these were a bunch of villagers. They had machetes and a bunch of men, and they start to ask questions about where they're from and if they're military. And Santiago and Tom try to calm the people down, but things start to intensify, and before you know it, one of them tries to pull a weapon, and they shoot most of the men in the village. And these weren't just regular farmers, they were actually farming cocaine. And Santiago makes a deal with the elder in the village. He gives them a bunch of money, and they get a bunch of mules from the village. They strap the money to the mules, and they start walking to the ocean. And after a very long trip across the jungle, they were all starting to get a little agitated. And as they were crossing this very narrow strip along a mountain, Fish almost falls to his death, but the mule he had with him falls off a cliff. And after a lot of days of going through the Andes mountains, they were starting to feel a little cold, and Benny lights up a lot of cash just to feel warm. They couldn't carry all this cash across anyways. And in the morning, as they were getting ready to leave again, they start to receive gunfire from someone on the hill. They manage to kill both the attackers who were from the village, but Tom gets shot in the head and dies. The entire team gets very frustrated, and they start to carry Tom's body with the money now. And after Benny goes and does a little reconnaissance, he finds out that there's a town just across from the hills, and most of the people there are actually Larea's soldiers. And so they realize that they can't really take the money across that town, and they have to carry Tom's body back to his family. So they decide to dump hundreds of millions of dollars in the mountains. They fill up their day packs with whatever amount of money they can carry, but it was nothing compared to how much they've actually dumped. And they manage to get across the small town, and they all make it on a boat, and they take Tom's body with them. And counting the money that they actually made it out with, it's just over a couple $1,000,000 bucks. But they don't even take that. Will decides that he doesn't want any of the money, and he wants it to go to a trust fund that they started for Tom. And then after Will cut up his contract, everybody else cuts up their contract, and they sign over their share of the money to Tom's family. This was truly a mission that just sucked, especially for Santiago because it was his plan. And just as they were all saying goodbye to one another, Will hands Santiago coordinates to where they dropped the money and tells him that maybe he'll find it and do something good with it. And that's pretty much how it ends. Do you think Santiago goes back to the Andes and finds the money? Or do you think after everything that happened, he doesn't really care anymore? Leave your comments in the comment section. I'll see you guys on the next recap. I love you all so much. Bye.